Special good morning to the listeners. Special good morning also to the viewers of GBN TV. And of course, the listeners of Classic Radio. Good Thursday morning. Started off with, of course, sort of a wet morning. The shower seems to have subsided just a wee bit. Not sure if it's going to continue for the entire day. Take a peek in terms of listening to the forecast. It's predicted we may get some showers continue the course of the day today, but we'll see how that rolls out. Good morning to those of you via social media platforms. I'm not sure we're going to have those of you via the Facebook pages yet. I think that still hasn't been sorted out. But those of you via the YouTube channels, good morning and welcome. Usually it's Thursday, so usually we host various departments within the RGPF. Haven't seen anyone arrive as yet. Should have had the traffic department with us this morning. Haven't seen anyone showed up as yet, so we may have to, of course, use this opportunity to allow you listeners and viewers to chime in terms of the open line for a wee bit. So let's see if we can get that flowing in the interim. And of course, we of course, if they do pop in, we certainly will get them in here and of course proceed with the conversation. It's to the point. Classic Radio, GBN TV. And matter of fact, I think my guest is actually here. So I'm going to ask Master Control to, of course, give us a short bit. Let me get them all settled in, and when we come, and then we come back and get the show all kicked off. All right. Apology for that. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, once again. It's to the point. Classic Radio, GBN TV. I'm your host, GT. Folks, we do have with us this morning Sergeant Troy Paul with us. Sarge, good morning. Welcome. Like to have you with us this morning once again. It's been a wee bit since I have you on the program.
Absolutely. A pleasant morning to you. And yes, it's been a while since I'm on the program. But I'm here nonetheless.
Yeah. Nice to have you back. Nice to have you back. Our primary conversation this morning: traffic safety. It's always an important conversation to have.
Absolutely.
In relevance to traffic situation. We'll talk about that. We know in the next couple of days, youngsters will be heading back to school.
Absolutely.
And the roads are going to be a little more busy than usual.
Definitely.
Is there ever not a busy day on the roads in Glen anyway? But it's going to be a little more busy than usual. So we're talking a whole lot about that, safety in general as you use the roads, the roadways and so forth, and general conversation in terms of traffic movements on our nation's roads. How would you like to kick this off this morning?
Yes, so as we know, the anticipation, the hype, the excitement, the adrenaline from school children as they getting ready to head back to school, the opening of a new school term.
Yeah.
And we know what goes with that, as I've stated, the excitement, new shoes, new bag, new clothes, and things like this. And we're going to touch this morning on a topic, road and transportation safety for back to school.
Yeah.
And we know how our roads are and can become around this time, especially in the peak hours, the morning and afternoon. So as children return to school, road becomes busier. Roads become busier during the morning and afternoon peak period. So drivers, parents, students, pedestrians, cyclists, public transport operators, and school authorities. So we all have a role to play in ensuring that our children remain safe. And remember all the entities that I've called here.
Yes.
And we at the RGPF, the traffic department, we are aware that children are particularly vulnerable when walking or using the road network, especially those who are going to school by foot, the pedestrians. And even those who are using the public transportation, boarding and exiting and so on, and also those that have to cross the roads.
Okay.
These are vulnerable people, and we have to make sure that from the traffic department that we make it safe for them by any means necessary.
All right. Let me ask you this as we move on. No, I'm assuming the next couple of days, I'm assuming the traffic department is developing a plan.
We already have a plan for back to school. Yes, so normally back to school, we already have plans in place for the managing of the traffic in the areas that we would experience a heightened volume of traffic and where we have choke points and so forth. So you definitely see that plan being executed bright and early at 7 a.m. on Monday morning.
Okay, great. Because I know that various points, you will see, especially when school is opened, and at various points in the morning, you will see the, members of the police force or the traffic department involved in it also, but police in general, there are different points.
Absolutely.
Helping helping with that smooth flow of the traffic, and we're going to see that come Monday morning. We're going to see that happening.
Yes, absolutely. You will see that Monday morning, as I said, bright and early at 7 a.m. And we'll have officers in various location choke points to assist in regulating the traffic in areas where we normally have challenges, such as we have first in the Springs area, Defo intersection there. If you come closer to the town, Reno, traffic light, and some of the roundabouts, you'll have portions at the number 1, number 2 points, Market Hill, Old Fort, and Lucas Street intersection, and Halifax, Granby Street, and Young and Scott Street, and a lot of other areas which we might develop choke points. But sometimes, as we said, but we're still observing the observing phase as it relates to, because every school term we get new choke points as it relates to areas, because what persons tend to do, they tend to avoid one road, and then now we're seeing, and then the cluster comes to another intersection. So now we will have to monitor by the use of, we will have the assistance of the drone unit as well, where we will have an aerial view of the entire south, especially of the south of the island, where we normally focus. But however, all the other areas in the Triangle State of Grenada will definitely execute their plan as it relates to their areas which they have their challenges for the reopening of school on Monday, Tuesday.
How is the police force planning on coordinating, especially with the minibus operators or bus operators that we call them in Grenada? School bus drivers, as some folks may want to say, also, who are doing that and doing the other to ensure that, especially safety when loading and unloading zones for children. That's always seems to be a concern.
Absolutely.
And that challenge where the buses or even the private car owners doesn't seem to want to, allow the youngsters to cross, especially in those particular zones. What are the police plans for that this year, if there is any? The traffic department, to be precise.
Yes. As it relates to that issue, what we do advise. So right now, I would like to let persons know that we need a resurfacing of our pedestrian crossings and so forth to make them visible, so drivers can be aware that we know some of them have been faded due to the NASA walk, the SAFE project, and the UKC project, and so we in the process of resurfacing to ensure that these signs are visible to the public, and we want to let persons know that you should not stop or park to drop off any children on a pedestrian crossing. It's an offense. Okay. So, and also
but some folks may see it as the best place to drop, but it's not the appropriate place to
do so. My point exactly, as it's part of
drop them on the pedestrian so they can cross, but it's not the appropriate place to do so?
No, because remember, you're obscuring the view from other drivers who may intend to maybe drive past if there's no one, or even pedestrian itself, because the main purpose of the pedestrian crossing is for pedestrians to cross it.
Yes.
So you obscure the view of that pedestrian who intends to cross, so they would not be able to see at a distance, or they may have limited view or limited visibility as it relates to seeing an oncoming vehicle most of the time, especially when that vehicle is already on them, and it is a disadvantage to both the pedestrian and driver when you park in those areas, because you limit visibility from both drivers and pedestrians alike.
A quick question though that come to mind, from time to time, school will be reopening soon. Is there going to be opportunities where we're going to see the traffic department, visiting schools and having these programs where they can have that conversation with the youngsters, especially in letting them know about, the safety procedures, especially for crossing and so forth, and the practice that they should entertain when crossing roads? Are we going to see that occurring this time around?
Yes, and I say that confidently because I am the one who will be spearheading that project as it relates to. We have started the last school term before school close, and in a number of schools. However, we have to continue, and we will definitely be doing that as the children settle down, and we will be engaging the principals and so on, so that we can have that discussion with. And we want to start with the primary schools, which we have started with, and head up to the secondary, and once time permits us to the tertiary TAMCC level. So again, we will be having those discussions in the schools. The road safety have discussion with the children, and also we'll be teaching them the proper use of how to use a pedestrian crossing, how to use the road when there is no pedestrian crossing, how to walk along the roadside for those who are walking, and with that we'll be doing some demonstration with the kids who will be demonstrating, and we've seen that it works, and even sometimes I may be walking or maybe patrolling in the towns, and you'll hear the children, I'll look at Sergeant Paul, and they will say, Sergeant Paul, tell us don't do that, do this when you're walking the road. So it definitely means that something is happening, and we target these children because these things remain in them, and they normally have a tendency that when they learn something to share it with their peers and also to their parents, guardians. So that is the reason why we start there. So we inculcate, we embed it in the mind of the young ones at an early age, so that they grow up with it, and that is something we will keep expounding in their heads, even from different levels, and as adults we normally would hear it. So again, something that we want to be extremely cautious about, especially safety for children.
All right. We drew for a break. Let's take it, and on return we continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. To the point. Classic Radio GBN TV. We will be right back after the short break. Don't touch it down.
Looking to shop online? Affordable quality products delivered to you via Superb Service. We are Superb Distributors, wholesalers and authorized agents for trusted products you know and love, like Rika Juices, Pure Heaven products, Bibbin diapers, New Bright laundry detergent, Allegro pasta, and more.
Contact Superb Distributors at 435-2948 for superb quality and service.
Grenada, we're back again. Faith Pentecostal Tabernacle presents Turning Point 4, grand finale, taking place at the Gateway Conference Center, Saturday, September the 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. sharp. Come and find out what will happen to Officer Brown. Will he finally get married? How about Sheila? Will she ever stop the gossip and have a turnaround? How about the ghost, Raymond? Will he ever be found? All these and more will be answered at Turning Point 4, the grand finale. Your tickets cost $50 more at the door. Don't forget your ticket outlet, Gittins Pharmacy, St. George, and Grand Anse. Turning Point 4, the finale.
Should I have seen that?
Listen to me. Don't question, you know I'm gifted. Okay?
Your Honor, something has to be wrong here.
No, nothing is wrong.
You know. Brothers and sisters, I'm blocking out.
You may not always have your ATM card on you, but that shouldn't stop you from accessing your money. With Republic Bank's cardless cash service, you can withdraw cash from any ATM without using your debit card. It's simple to use. Just log into your Republic Bank app, select cardless cash, enter the amount you need and generate the one-time code. At the ATM, enter your code, confirm your details and you're done. No card needed. It's useful when you left your wallet behind and when you need to send cash to someone else securely. With cardless cash, you stay in control and in touch with your money wherever you are. Republic Bank, ready for life, every step.
The Caribbean's highly anticipated international drags returns to the Spice Isle of Grenada. The Grenada Motor Club proudly presents the King Ocean International Drags, September 26th and 27th at the Pearls International Speedway. Get ready for what is anticipated to be one of the largest international drag racing events the Caribbean has ever seen. Witness some of the fastest and most powerful drag racing machines in the Caribbean, along with international participation from across the region, North America and South America. 2 days of speed, power, adrenaline, and non-stop action. And it doesn't stop at drag racing. Expect some special drift entertainment, appearances from some of the Caribbean's top influencers, and so much more. Mark the date, September 26th and 27th. The King Ocean International Drags. The Caribbean is coming to the Spice Isle. You don't want to miss this one.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. Once again, it's To The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. Sergeant Paul, welcome back. I want us to get into this segment of the conversation and some of the road safety practices, especially for drivers on our nation's road. You know, being safe while you drive along our nation's road is important.
Absolutely.
You know, and sometimes we see folks sort of deviate from that for various reasons. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So again, we just want to remind the drivers, especially for the reopening of school, that you first, because we have what we call school zone areas.
Yeah.
We want to admonish you to slow down in those areas. Even if you do not see any children by the roadways and so forth, slow down, because at any moment a child could run out from a road. We're not saying that they should, but we know what happens with children, and also near bus stops and so on, residential areas. Please slow down.
You know, and the option of being awake. You know, sometimes I get the impression like drivers are unaware. When I say unaware of school times, and when school, the morning period, per se, we know that that's when school, the youngsters will be going to school.
Yes.
There's a specific time when school is let out, which means the youngsters will be moving on the roads. They have left the school, which means they're going to be on the road. And suddenly you get the impression folks are not aware of these times. How important for folks to get themselves acquainted with the opening and closing hours for schools?
It is absolutely important, because remember, as I've said earlier on, that is the peak hours where you would have heightened pedestrian movement, especially from the children. And remember, as I've stated, they are the vulnerable ones.
Yes.
And also we have heightened movements of vehicular traffic as well for persons, both private and public transportation, because remember, the private drivers, most of them will be coming to pick up their children, and also the buses will try to take advantage of the getting children to attend or to commute on their bus to whatever destination. So again, we see the heightened volume of both pedestrian and vehicle movement. So again, we urge drivers to slow down, whether or not it's the same buses that take the children to and from their schools, because we're seeing that trend, especially on the River Road, Boca direction, that buses are speeding back and forth from the terminus, and God forbid, nothing has has happened as yet, but we do not want anything to happen to our children as a result of our buses speeding. So again, we urge the drivers, especially our public transportation services, to please slow down while you travel with those vulnerable people in your hand.
What are some of the plans does the traffic department have? You speak about speeding around school zones and stuff like that a while ago. What are some of the plans we're going to see this time around school reopening? Are some of the plans going to be implemented in terms of helping to alleviate that kind of problem?
Yes. So since that we are aware of the situation and we know where it happened, our mobile patrol teams will be in those areas the times that are stated as relates to the ending of school where persons heading home, and we know the time that the perpetrators are speeding, so we definitely will have persons in the areas, and we do have radar guns just to let persons know, and once you're over the speed limit, you'll definitely be ticketed or charged for the offense. But more so, we want to talk about a manner that is conducive for the volume of traffic that is expected to be on the road, and that can constitute a dangerous driving.
Yes.
So drivers, please be mindful of that as well. Also, we want our drivers to remain alert for children crossing unexpectedly, and these are the times where you see children who might leave one side of the road to cross, maybe because their friend is on the other side, or for some particular reason they may just want to cross from one side to the other. And from time to time, as I've said, that is how useful it is that when we visit the schools, we let children know the safety and dangers as relates to crossing the road at anyhow and at any point in time, and what they should do. So normally one of the things that we will emphasize or re-emphasize with the students is how to properly cross the road and use the pedestrian crossing. And I want to just state it on air for those parents who are listening, because they have an obligation as well, or teachers, that you as well have to teach the children how to properly use the road. And what we advise that once they intend to cross, or there's a pedestrian crossing, the first thing that they do is stop.
Yeah.
And the reason why you stopping is to look and to listen, to look to see if anything is coming or for any oncoming traffic, and also to listen, because sometimes you might look and you may not see anything coming, but then you may hear the sound of an ambulance or some vehicle that is in distress or so forth.
Could be from a distance.
My point exactly. So you don't want to attempt to cross and then an ambulance is approaching. What do? That might distract or confuse a child and so on. So if they hear the sound of siren and so on, please remain stationary on the side. Or if they're already crossing and they hear a siren, cross briskly to the safest side or the shortest side to get back onto the side of the road.
Okay.
And before doing that, once they've heard sirens or they hear or see a vehicle coming, remain stationary, remain where you are, and put your hand out indicating to the driver that you intend to cross the road, and once make sure that vehicle has come to a complete stop, and that is very, very important. Make sure the vehicle has come to a complete stop, and once you've satisfied yourself that vehicle has come to a complete stop, then you cross briskly from one side to the other side.
All right. And those are the kind of conversation parents should be having now, and as a bit of a refresher to their children, their sons and daughters who are heading back to school. That get a refresher conversation, especially those who parents may not be the ones dropping their sons and daughters off to school. They may be using public transportation. After school, they may have the same process of where they may have to use public transportation to get back at home, or the option also where they will be walking.
Sure.
Walking to and from school. These practices are very important that they pay attention to that. And as you mentioned, if there are parents who are listening right now, those are the conversations you should be having, on a serious level with their sons and daughters.
Even from the school level too, with teachers, and not only about the maths, the English, the social studies.
Yes.
Road safety should be a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Even if it's half an hour and then you have a practical session, or if you feel the need that the school needs it, just call us at the traffic department, and we will gladly come and provide that service to whatever school that needs those lectures and topic of discussion.
What are some of the basic concerns from the traffic department as relates to, how vehicle owners and so move about on the roads, especially during school time? What are some of the major concerns that the traffic department has?
Well, so far what we're still seeing persons have been distracted driving, especially with the use of cell phone. No matter how much you admonish drivers that cell phone is risky while driving, being on the cell phone, if some even send text messages and so forth, it is dangerous. I always say multitasking while behind the wheel is a dangerous way to drive. And as I say, a recipe for disaster. And not just the mobile device, anything else that takes away your focus while being along the road. Some people might be drinking, they might be doing their hair, and to some point you might see females even attempt to put on a little makeup or eat while driving and so forth. And that is a bad practice. If you have to do anything of that sort, we ask that you pull over to the side in a safe place where your vehicle does not cause any obstruction. You take your call, you do whatever you have to do. If you have to eat, you have to drink some water for whatever reason, and for whatever reason that I've stated.
Talk to me about the enforcement strategy this time around, especially for situations of that nature where drivers seems to be distracted a whole lot. So you mentioned when I say the enforcement strategy, especially with folks regarding the use of the mobile phones while driving, the folks who are not using their seat belts, driving above the not driving within that safe limit, and so what are some of the enforcement strategies that the traffic department plan on this time around?
Well, it is the same. We have a zero tolerance as it relates to the use of mobile device, especially because that's one of the biggest distraction along the roads, and persons. I don't know if it's a trend or they just. Well, I don't want to say forget, because we've always been telling people, put down the cell phone, get a hands-free device.
Yes.
That is one of the ways that will exempt you from the law. Get a hands-free device, but yet you're still seeing persons. If I drive from
you think a revise of the penalties may fix this?
Well, that is one aspect of it, but it starts with the attitude of drivers. The attitude of drivers. And we don't want to have to reach to that stage or that phase of having to increase penalties so persons would have to adhere to that. That means we've gone at a state that it is way beyond bad, as we say. So persons, we just want to admonish, and we are custom admonishing persons. I just want to let them know.
But Sergeant Paul, the cry has been out a long time.
Absolutely, and
the laws been retained to especially the use of cell phones and stuff has been out a pretty long time. And I think by now the average driver or user of a vehicle knows that it is against the law for you to be driving and using the cell phone, except you're using some other device within your vehicle. And I always think talking also while you're driving is a distraction, even though you're not even holding the device,
even with somebody,
because you could be thrown off by the level of the conversation you're having. You lost focus on what you're doing because of that conversation. The wife may call you and she quarreling, you understand? I'm saying it as a joyful manner, but it happens.
Absolutely.
It happens. You could be distracted by that. So I think maybe it's a time that we have a revision of that, where it's gotten to a stage where folks know the penalties that involve for me doing that is so high that I will totally avoid wanting to do that. What's your take on that?
Well, that is an option, but with that, well, I guess we'll have to definitely explore that, because persons are not adhering. So as we said, as they say, who cannot hear will feel.
So true.
They will have to feel it. They may not feel it physically, but they will feel it. But they will feel it financially and emotionally.
Emotionally also.
Because when you do not have that amount of money in your pocket that you should have for a particular something, and you don't have it, then it will affect you financially and emotionally, because you have to think, where am I getting that money from now to replace it?
I mean, we're not trying to instill fear in anyone.
No, but what we want
we just want to see an improvement, and then because it seems like folks get to a stage where it doesn't matter.
Complacency.
It doesn't matter. I'm driving in my cell phone, and I'm driving with my cell phone.
And we cannot allow that from the traffic department standpoint. But because the time we allow that, once, as you said, once you sleep your side, then you have a fatal in your hand as a result of the distractive driving, or the negligence, or the dangerous driving, or whatever means that persons drive recklessly on on the nation's road, and we cannot sit and tolerate that sort of behavior from the Royal Grenada Police Force. So again, we urge persons, once you observe drivers in this particular manner, call us, let us know so that we can deal with these things accordingly. Nip it in its bud, as we normally would say.
Another concern is that, of course, I know it's a concern of the traffic departments. Drivers who are driving not within the appropriate speed limits from time to time, how concerning is that still for the traffic department?
It is always concerning, and I always say it's not just speeding, because we have a set speed limit for our roads. The town 20 miles, and for out of the towns, the public service vehicles and the goods service vehicles is 35 miles per hour, and the private vehicles 40. But more so, we want persons to drive for the condition of the road that we have, because yes, you may say 40 miles, but sometimes is it worth driving 40 miles per hour in a road that is damaged, in a road that is broken, in a road that there's narrow winding corners and so on?
Yeah.
So take that into consideration. Yes, and also in the town, especially when you have build up of pedestrian movement and so on. These are the things that will be taken into consideration when we determine certain things. And we want you as the drivers, not because we said you have 20, 40 or 35 miles per hour, you would say, well, I was driving, but then we still have to be mindful of the condition of the road and the expected pedestrian traffic at a particular time.
The roads may just not be conducive for you driving at that particular speed, even though you think you'll be driving within the law, in that speed, at the limit, that you're supposed to be driving at.
Yes, so
it's not necessary.
So it's also important to pay attention to signs, such as school zones, pedestrian crossing signs, and so on, because sometimes we see persons push past pedestrian crossings and so on, when you're supposed to, the prudent thing to do when you know you're approaching a school zone or a pedestrian crossing, you slow down and you look out for persons intending to cross and so on, or other road traffic signs that may be on the road. If you're speeding, you will miss a lot of things.
So true. We do for a break. Let's take it. When we come back, we continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. To the point. Classic Radio, GBN TV. We will be right back after the break. Don't touch it down.
Run by.
Thursday afternoon in a 60 zone. This 34-year-old motorcyclist was on his way home. It's our job to work out why he never got there. The rider broke his neck on impact here, having crashed into this car that was turning right. By analysing the impact, we know he hit the car at 30 kilometres per hour, and these marks on the road tell us that he skidded for 21 metres, having braked hard here. When he first reacted, he was doing 68. But let's change one small thing. At 60, the driver would have had more chance to see him properly. He'd have stayed in control and reached this point a moment later. The car would have cleared his path and he'd be home by now. You decide on your speed. The physics decides whether you live or die.
cross the pedestrian crossing.
Really? One day I just woke up and I saw pedestrian crosswalks on the road. No one really showed me how to use them properly.
Well, this is how it's done. You never cross before doing these things. They might save your life. First, when you get to the crosswalk, you stop. You look left, you look right. If there's a vehicle coming, you put your hand out, making eye contact with the driver, indicating that you want to cross. And only when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, you quickly cross to the other side.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact. Wait for pedestrian to cross to the other side, then you happily continue.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, once again to the Point Classic Radio GBN TV. Sergeant Paul, welcome back. Let's talk a wee bit about children's safety.
Yes,
we want to expand on that. I think we touched it a wee bit in the earlier segment of the conversation, but we may have just grazed on it just a wee bit. I want to expand on that. Talk about children's safety.
Yes, so we know most of our children walk to school.
Yeah,
especially those who are living close to the schools or in proximity where they have the option to walk at times. So again, parents, and I want to make that appeal to parents. Let us teach our children to how to properly use the road, and as we mentioned, how to properly use the pedestrian crossing, which we've explained that earlier on.
Yes,
and also to properly use the road, because if they're walking, some of the things that we want them to know how to walk the road, the safe side of the road to walk, especially where they can see that vehicle coming towards them and not give the traffic their back. Teach them that. Also teach them, do not play while walking and be going along their way to school or from school, playing on the road. So if you see them with balls and so forth, avoid them having those things in their hand and so forth, because once they have it in their hand, they may tend to use it while walking and so on, and that ball may bounce away and end up in the road, and they may tempted to go behind it immediately. And also we want to teach them that at least to walk in single file once it is necessary and so on, because what some of them may want to hold their little brother and sister hand and make sure that they walk safely, and they may push themselves out into the road. Try to, once it's necessary to walk in single file, the safest way to walk and along the side of the road. In most of the areas we do not have sidewalks, and some of the areas, especially in the countryside and so forth, but for those in the town, we urge them that they use the sidewalks and the designated area that is provided for them. Teach them that it's a safe place to walk. The pedestrian crossing is a safe place to cross, and not just cross the road at any unsafe location where they're putting themselves in dangers as well. Teach them to cross at the, as we said, designated pedestrian crossing where it's possible, and also the procedures to cross. Teach them to stop, to look left, look right, look again before crossing, and never run into the roadways. Make eye contact with drivers, especially if they intend to cross. And that's one of the things that we didn't mention and talk about crossing the pedestrian or using the pedestrian crossing. Make eye contact with the driver, but more so ensure that vehicle has come to a complete stop before crossing, and avoid using phones. Some children are privileged to have phones and earphones and earbuds and so on, and they may want to use it while they may be walking to listen to their favorite music, or for whatever reason they may have the phone playing games. And you have these games that they will normally, I'm not too sure if they have the Robust or the Robulus or whatever game it is that they're addicted to, and they may want to take advantage of maybe advancing to other levels and so on while they go into or from school and so forth. If it is not a if a child does not need that cell phone for the purpose of contacting their parent and so forth, do not allow them to go to the schools. And I know some of the schools have a policy that they take the student's phone and they have to surrender the phone once they enter the school and so forth. But if it is not necessary that a child goes to school with a phone or while having to walk, do not allow them to have one, because it is a form of distraction. And once they're into the headphones, that they can drift into the roads and so on. And we know what can happen if they're being struck by a vehicle while they're drifting into the road and so forth. And these are the things that we do not want, or the things that we at the traffic department trying to avoid for that new school term that is about to start in August 31st.
All right.
And we also teach them, do not play along the roadways, do not push or chase one another near traffic and so forth. And these are the things that we want you, the parents, if you're listening, to teach your children so that they will be aware, and once they use the road network, they will be in a business-like manner heading to and from school.
All right. Well, it's happy that we have that covered, and I certainly hope parents, we spoke in relation to teach them the proper way to use the pedestrian crossing. Certainly hope that you will be able to have that sit down with them and talk to them in relation to that. And you can have that practical experience with them also.
Absolutely.
Take them where there's a pedestrian crossing and show them how it should be done. Do it multiple times so at least they get a drift of it. Go in both sides, from each side. Talk to them in terms of how to walk along on the roads, as you mentioned. Or you walk that you can see the oncoming traffic, and do not play in the road. That's very, very important that parents talk to their sons and daughters in relation to that as school is getting closer to be reopened. Anything else we may have missed?
Yes, and in addition to that, parents can also role play with their children as well. Yes. There's a lot of nice YouTube videos, animated ones, that where you can show your children as it relates to and teach them. Children learn in different ways. Some might learn through video and pictures. Yeah. Some might learn through demonstration, and some might learn you tell them and they
some will absorb it instantly by you telling them. And it goes back to what I mentioned a while ago in terms of having that practical approach to it.
Yes.
You may tell them, but if you take them along the road and show them how it's supposed to be done, get some time to do that, and walk along the road with them. Hey, this is how you walk along on the road. Because sometimes just telling them, they may not always grasp it the way you want it. Anything else you want to try?
For that, I just want to talk a little on transportation safety, especially the public transportation. We want the bus drivers and so on, especially also students and bus drivers, ensure that vehicle, if those are taking public transportation, make sure the vehicle come to a complete stop before entering or exiting those buses, because we know sometimes certain areas may have shortage of buses and persons may have to fumble to get buses and so on, and then when the buses come, everybody try to rush in, and before that bus, the bus door open, and sometimes the bus might be still moving, so the driver maybe could get a proper park so that persons could enter, and you see persons start rushing, or even for the children, they might anxious to drop off, and before as the conductor open the door, before the bus comes to a complete stop, they try to get off the bus and or get a seat, and also to exit the bus. So it is something that we advise that you wait until that bus comes to a complete stop before entering or exiting that bus. And we ask that the children remain seated in the bus for the duration of their ride. We've seen that children do stand up in buses, and they may want to communicate with another child in the back of the bus or to the front, so most of the seats are designed for adults in terms of the height, so in order to communicate they may have to stand up to do so and so on, or for whatever reason let them sit teach them to sit in the vehicle for the duration of the ride. Also, students are putting their hands and heads outside of the motor vehicle, and some of them, they get in early to see if they could get a window seat, and even growing up, we would love to get a window seat as well, because you get more
traffic
breeze.
Situation was different those times.
Yes, totally, and you want them to, because most of the times the seat they will get is maybe on the traffic side, and you want them to have their hand and head inside, so that you wouldn't have any in the event of an accident or so on, they will be safe while being inside of the
But
bus.
I think more or less that appeal should be given a lot more to the drivers of buses.
Yes.
You understand? Yes, parents, you should talk to your sons and daughters in relation to they not putting their head or hands out of the windows. But I think it's important that the owners of buses, make sure that if their bus is being used for transporting children to school, that these options are not available in terms of the windows are locked and stuff for that particular purpose.
Yes, and you let them know that if they intend to, that you observe anything of that sort, you call out to them, you pull to the side, and you let them know
that should not be done. Or probably the option where it's been reported to the schools, so the principal or the teacher in that particular class can have that conversation with the youngsters in terms of who may be the ones getting into that particular practice, that it should stop.
Yes, and another thing too, for the parents, especially dropping off the children, let us drop them on the safe side, the side that is not where the traffic is passing. Some students may want to exit on any side if you have maybe more than one child in your seat, and they have the access to that door on their side. But is it the safe side? No, it may not be, because that is the side of traffic. So for their safety, allow them all of them to exit on the safe side, and that is a non-traffic side, and so that you don't have any accident, because sometimes it might be safe when they started, but then by the time they open the door and to exit and so on, a vehicle might be approaching, and we know what happened. We've seen accidents where we have people struck opening doors and so on, and the fault maybe on both sides. Maybe the person open the door suddenly onto the oncoming vehicle and so forth, and it can cause danger to the child as well exiting that vehicle. So again, we will ensure that they cross them on the safe side, and if the schools have safe zones, please try to drop them in that safe zone and avoid double parking, avoid parking where you limit visibility for other pedestrians, and also look out, especially for reversing in a school zone area, school parking lots and so forth. Remember, you will have the little ones, and depending on the height and so forth, you may not be able to see them if they're crossing behind your vehicle. So especially if you're reversing and so forth, be extremely careful and extremely cautious while doing so. Make use of your mirrors, make use of your careful of your surroundings before moving off, especially if you're in a school parking lot or in a school safe zone area.
All right. I want to ask you this also. How important it is for the is it the traffic departments, is it an encouragement that schools maybe probably hire private wardens to help in terms of crossing the school? I see you smile in relation to this, and I understand the traffic department can't be everywhere, with the limited resources that you all have, in terms of being in these particular school zones. How important is it in terms of encouraging schools to probably have their private wardens that will help in terms of the crossing, the drop-off zones, or to help? Because sometimes you see as a driver myself, when you're driving, there may be parents dropping off, and they now have to obstruct the traffic in order to get to drop off their children, their sons and daughters to school. If there was someone there that could help in terms of warding that movement of the children across, that could certainly save time. Because now that parent has to stop, get their children across the road, come back, and they're stopping the road, which is causing an obstruction for the traffic. Do you encourage us?
I highly recommend that move, and I was going to touch. The reason why I smiled is because I was going to touch on a little bit of that as we go in the program. And yes, it helps eliminate obstruction, and it helps promote safer crossing for the students. And with that, as you've just explained, that the wardens will gather all the children and cross them rather than one cross now, and every time a parent comes, obstruct the traffic to cross. So you drop them off in that safe zone area, and the warden now is responsible for crossing them from one side to the other. We do have, some schools do have the wardens, or some areas where you have school wardens, and we have traffic wardens which we normally would deploy to certain areas once we see the need, and also police officers to assist in regulating the traffic and allowing the safe crossing of students. But however, again, we want persons to respect them when they're there, and to obey their instructions, their directions, and so on. And because they are there for a particular reason, you would not see what they're seeing.
Yes.
And they are there to ensure that the children cross safely, and also paying attention to obstruction in mind, and the best way that we can do that. And also, as we mentioned, that we still seeing that parents are waiting for the last to, when they drop their child, to want to show those love and affection, and these things cause obstruction in traffic. Yes. And sometimes where they're parked on pedestrian crossing, unsafe manner, and then they have to take out the child bag in the trunk, or they have to come out, give the child a hug, and maybe go to the extreme, maybe pull out money from their purse to give a child, because and so forth. We see these things happening.
These are the things they can do in advance.
My point,
the huggers and kisses, do that at home. You understand, and whatever else, so you can have a free flow of the traffic.
Yes.
I understand where you're coming from. We could say this a million times, but it needs the folks wanting to make those changes themselves.
Absolutely.
We could say this for every day. You could come here as being from the traffic department and have that conversation and keep saying this, but it takes the individuals themselves wanting to make those changes to see a difference in terms of how things occur.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. We just have a few more minutes on the program, just roughly 6 more minutes or so. Anything else you want to throw out? We also give the option to the listeners and viewers. I see that a couple of folks are calling already if you want to tap in terms of a question. But anything else you want to throw out before we wrap up?
It's just the area of the school zones, especially for schools, and to make sure that the school remains safe. And most of the schools, we know that they have pedestrian crossing, but if you as a principal or a teacher see that there is a need for pedestrian crossing in your area, call us at the traffic department. We'll assess it, and we'll have it implemented once we see the need for that
maybe
pedestrian crossing,
or something,
or even resurfacing. Because remember, with the projects that we had, most of the pedestrian crossing were faded. We'll look and to see whether or not it is. But we know that the pedestrian crossing is the safest way for those children, and it is a universal sign. So let us know, and even if you have to implement or have those school zones signs in your area, let us know so we can contact the ministry so that we could have those signs erected, so that drivers can be aware. Because remember, we have the locals, they may know or may be aware of where our schools are, but we have visitors to island, and we now approaching the tourist season, and a lot of them might be using the rentals and so on, so we have to erect those signs and so on, so that they can be aware that there's a school zone that they need to slow down and so forth. So it is important, and also to have drop-off zone areas, and as we mentioned earlier, higher waters if it's necessary, once they can afford it and so forth. So, and make sure that there is a proper visibility and so on, lighting and in those areas for the children, for those that might have to stay back late and so forth.
Okay, great. We do have a caller online. Caller, you're live. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings.
Good morning to you, sir.
To your guests. First, a little brief observation and then a concern. Sergeant Paul, I heard you speak of certain things that relate to the drivers and their behavior. And listen, Mr. Paul, sir, and to the authorities of this country. If you're issuing license for people to operate vehicles on the road, and these people, admittedly by the police, lack the capacity to read and write, you have to expect what is happening. It is just logical, and it is serious. Now to my observation. I live in Simon Bolivar Village, La Colombe. The entrance to the area of the distillery in Wester Hall prior to the bridge. It's been occurring over the years. It continues to occur. I was crossing the road a couple days ago with a sighted guide. We looked at the traffic, everything, before we began to cross, and there was a madman coming around, and behind our backs, while we drove just a little after the middle of the road, this madman passed behind our backs. No. This happens, and maybe it'll continue to happen because nobody pays. I ask about the pedestrian crossing and its condition. the paint is faded, seriously faded. Both the restriction lines, I understand, and the pedestrian crossing itself. I'd like to suggest that these pedestrian crossings be refurbished, in other words, polished up, and with the corresponding paint, because seemingly they do not last. And as a person of working this road marking paint is specially designed to guarantee reflection and so on at night. And they do not wear that fast as long as they're properly made to standards. I'd like to suggest that you look at it. And finally, Mr. Paul, sir, John Rollo personally would like to have a brief chat with you, read your presentations on morning, some suggestions. If you don't mind, sir, because I've tried to reach you and I can't. 231 John, I'll be grateful. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Will you, gentlemen?
Thank you, sir. And of course, I guess you took the number. Have a conversation if you can. All right. In terms of what the caller mentioned, anything you want to, of course, rebuttal on that?
Yes, I just want to acknowledge the caller's comment and concern and advice, and I would definitely be looking to it, take it into consideration as it relates to what is said, looking to the area of the pedestrian crossing, and if it needs brightening, that we do so at as soon as possible time, so that for the safety of all pedestrians or persons using that area. Okay. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention, and we'll definitely look into it. And I've definitely listened to your concern, and we will look at those things and see how we can make amends.
All right, we do have another caller. Caller, you're live. Good morning. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
My concern is that we're talking about the children and crossing the road and things, right? But what I say is irrelevant to the topic. But what's about people driving and truck and they're in the back of the truck, hang out? Is this not an offense? I go to Barbados, I go to America, I go to Canada, and I never see that yet. And these fellas, they're hanging out in the back of the truck. This could be a problem for us. I would like the police to really, really put an end to this thing.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you, and of course, it's a good observation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because being in the tray of a vehicle is not one of the safest places. We know sometimes we might use it as convenience or accommodation, but it is not one of the safest things. Remember, when we're talking about passengers, they're supposed to be seated in vehicles and so on, and not in the tray. The tray is for loads, for whatever aggregates, trucks and so forth, and not for the carrying of passengers. So, and also we want persons to look out for their safety. It's not just because the fact that I'm getting a ride or some convenience to me that I would not look out for my safety, because once you're there, remember you're not safe in there, and you become, if for whatever reason turnover or accident and so forth, you'll be the first to be affected.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, we must look at, and we have to make that appeal to drivers.
To the driver or the owner of that vehicle for having someone driving in the back of it?
Well, then you have to look at the amount of persons or passengers that vehicle is licensed to carry, yes. And once there is persons in the tray and it goes beyond, then it definitely means that vehicle is overloaded.
Okay, great. We do have another caller. Caller via WhatsApp. You're live. Good morning.
Good morning, GT, and good morning to Sergeant Paul.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. And I just want to make one comment here in regards to the wardens. I remember a lot of years ago, and that was when I was a kid. There was they used school children that they would use as wardens. They would train the bigger boys and the bigger girls to actually be wardens. They would dress them up, put a sash around them. They would give them a stick with a sign to put out to cause the traffic to slow down and to stop. Is that a possibility? Because it may encourage somebody who didn't know that probably being a policeman, that they could actually be a policeman. I'm thinking that might be a good thing to do, a good practice, and encourage them along that line of being a good police. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, caller. What about observation there also? I think I remember my way back in school. That used to be something that used to occur also. We will take a final caller and we take a wrap for today.
No problem.
Final caller. Caller, you're live. Good morning. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning to you, GT, and to Mr. Paul. Citizen Roller mentioned that other thing about repainting the crossings and so. But there's another important matter that the officer mentioned in passing. He said about teach them the correct side of the road to walk. But I didn't hear him say which is the correct side. And I'm emphasizing that because I've had a lot of fights with police officers who said to me that they're not aware that it is a correct side. I've had folks who are training recruits on the road. When I ask them, why are they walking in the road? I say, are you automobiles? Why are you walking left? And they'll say to me, is there a correct side? As a matter of fact, only a month ago, some of the older recruits were being, given a little run on the road. And the person who was giving them cover held me up for over 2 minutes, arguing with me that there is no law that emphasizes which side people should walk. So when you mentioned that they should use the correct side, it's important to say which is the correct side. The safe side is the right side. Many of your colleagues don't accept it. They don't agree with it. And I think this is something we have to get into the police force psyche. If they don't believe it and they want to enforce it, they want to encourage it. It's not always possible. Some places have pavements and some don't. But we have to get that into the minds and the thinking of the police force, that there is a correct side for pedestrians to use. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. And that was our final caller for the morning. And respond to the caller?
Yes, I want to, as it relates to, as you've mentioned, the safe side of the road to walk on. And I always tell students or pedestrians like that the safest side to walk to. One of the things we always say, do not give the traffic your back. Always be in a position where you can see oncoming traffic, especially on that side you're walking. So if, for example, you're on we normally drive here on the left side of the road.
Yes.
So then it definitely means that walking on the right side, for example, as you stated. But remember, it is not always sometimes the prudent thing to do, because remember, how our roads are designed. There's a lot of things that must be taken into consideration while using the road, and you have to be cognizant of this fact that yes, the right side in terms of being on that way you can see the traffic approaching you, but looking at our conditions and the topography and a lot of things, we have to be at and corners. So despite it is safe, if it's on a corner, you wouldn't want that child to walk on the right side if they're approaching a corner.
Okay, I understand.
So you have to look at all these things, especially when walking or using the road.
Sergeant Paul, anything in closing before we take a wrap this morning?
Yes, I just want to make sure and show that what we've said this morning resonates in the mind of both the drivers, parents, teachers, the school authorities, and everyone who plays that pivotal role in ensuring the safety for our children. And we've mentioned a lot this morning as it relates to children's safety, transportation safety, public transportation safety, and as it relates to a lot of things that are pertaining to the safety of children from different perspectives. And again, as we know, school is approaching, and we do not want our kids to be statistic as it relates to road accidents and so forth. So we're definitely appealing to drivers, the parents. Let us teach our children, even in schools. Contact the traffic department for the schools, and we will be there to assist in teaching the children the proper way to use the road network. And also, again, for the drivers, distractive driving, the speeding, the recklessness along those areas. And again, on mornings, we know the heightened times are the peak hours of the morning, where we would have not morning alone, but morning and evening, where we have drop-offs and so forth. We want to make sure that our children remain safe, as we've said in the opening, that they are vulnerable, and we must do everything in our power to protect them by any means necessary. And we will definitely do that as we come school opening. We'll have officers in choke points, wardens to assist in regulating the traffic and so forth. And as we get back to school, we just want to improve on the drivers and especially the private. We know the volume of traffic that will be on our road. We advise you that you leave a little bit earlier to start your journey, so that you wouldn't have to be ending up in the traffic and then further obstructing the traffic by having to wait to drop off. And we know what that can happen. Okay. So leave home from earlier to avoid the obstruction and the distraction along the roads and so forth. And we will definitely see an improvement in the volume of traffic that we anticipate.
Would like to see that smoother flow of traffic.
Yes.
Sergeant Paul, I want to thank you once again. Pleasure as always. Until we do this again, have a good one.
You as well, and thanks for the opportunity of being here.
Oh, sure. Hey, folks, that's it. We're going to take a wrap for today's edition of To The Point. That's where we say goodbye.